Ling Han's dantian opened, revealing the faint stirrings of power, a harbinger of the element-gathering tier. He had not yet reached the pinnacle, but the limits of his internal reservoir of origin power had expanded. The true power, however, lay in the formation of the origin nucleus. Until that occurred, his power was not complete. Many a martial artist had lingered at this very step, the 9th layer of the body-refining tier, ensnared by the invisible barrier preventing their breakthrough. Countless had faltered here, too numerous to count, yet all were still unable to reach the element-gathering tier. In this realm, the element-gathering martial artists were capable of forming 9 origin nuclei. Once the 9th nucleus was formed, they could finally advance into the gushing spring tier. But Ling Han, he had already walked this path in his previous life. The forming of an origin nucleus was but a simple task for him, one that he had achieved time and again. He began the process. His will steady. The origin power stirred within his body like a raging storm, gathering, intertwining, and melding as he shaped the energy into a single, solid nucleus. It was a familiar sensation, one he had mastered before. In mere moments, the power congealed, forming a minuscule origin nucleus, no larger than a strand of hair, yet as soon as the formation was complete, a shock ran through him. Within his dantian, 5 separate origin nuclei had formed, as though the very power of the 5 elements themselves had coalesced. This sight was beyond comprehension. 5 nuclei? How could this be? He had only just broken through to the element-gathering tier, and yet he had already reached the 5th level? This was impossible. The 5 origin nuclei were far too small, still far from their full strength, and no martial artist had ever heard of such a thing. A single person forging 5 origin nuclei at once. Ling Han observed them closely, his heart racing. These 5 nuclei, gold, green, white, red, and black, were clearly aligned with the 5 elements: gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Could it be that his spirit base, with its diverse elemental alignments, was capable of forming multiple origin nuclei? No, that could not be. He had never heard of such a thing, not even in his last life. This was uncharted territory, a feat unknown to the martial world. Ling Han's mind raced. These 5 nuclei were not random. They had reached an astonishing balance. If even one of them were slightly stronger, the entire structure would collapse and only the most powerful nucleus would remain. To sustain 5, each of the 5 elemental alignments must be in perfect harmony, none overtaking the others. Ling Han had come to a startling conclusion. To form multiple nuclei, the alignment of his spirit base had to be in perfect equilibrium. Only under such conditions could multiple nuclei coexist, each sustaining the others. Such a delicate balance was rare in the world, and very few martial artists could achieve it. Though some possessed 2, 3, or even 4 elemental alignments, only those with perfect harmony between them could form more than one origin nucleus. Ling Han had spent much of his previous life studying alchemy and cultivation. His encounters with martial artists possessing multiple nuclei had been rare, and he had never suspected that anyone could keep multiple nuclei in balance. Yet here, in his own body, was the proof. 5 perfectly balanced nuclei, a feat that seemed to defy the natural order. The thought of the potential power this granted him sent a thrill through his veins. If he could harness the power of 5 nuclei, it meant that his origin power would be 5 times stronger than that of any other martial artist at his level. The power of every strike, every movement would be amplified by this astonishing number. Ling Han's mind raced as he pondered the implications. In the element-gathering tier, the stages were divided into 3, early, middle, and late. The first layer was 1, the second was 2, the third was 3, and by the 4th it would leap to 6. With 5 origin nuclei, his power was already unmatched, but the balance of these elements hinted that it could be even greater. 6 times the strength, maybe 10 times. Once I reach the peak of the first layer, Ling Han thought, I will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with those in the 4th layer of the element-gathering tier. The power this grants me is unfathomable. The true strength of his immortal-grade spirit base began to take form. Yet, there were trade-offs. Expanding 5 nuclei would take longer than the rapid growth of a single one. The advantage of quick cultivation, so typical of an immortal-grade spirit base, would be somewhat mitigated by the slower process of nurturing these 5 delicate nuclei. Furthermore, the space within his Dantian would have to be far larger to sustain the sheer volume of power required. Without this, he would exhaust his energy too quickly to make use of it in battle. Fast cultivation may not be as vital, Ling Han mused. Even without rapid growth, the power I wield will be unparalleled. And I, the Alchemy Emperor, will find ways to maintain my progress at a swift pace. Even if I take 200 years to reach Heaven Tier again, it will be the fastest in history. No, that will not take me that long. I already understand the intricacies of the various tiers. I will break through far faster. The world is balanced, he thought. And if I want more power, I must make greater sacrifices, but the power I gain is worth it. As long as I can expand the space in my Dantian and continue refining my balance, I will become a force unmatched in this world. Ling Han set his mind to the task ahead. He began guiding the remnants of the green spiritual fruit's medicinal power, using it to expand his Dantian further, strengthening his origin nuclei. The cultivation of the element gathering tier required a constant expansion of one's Dantian and the strengthening of the origin nucleus. The larger the Dantian, the more origin power it could hold. The more robust and rapid the nuclei's rotation, the greater the power they could unleash. Ling Han, with the focus of a master, began excavating his Dantian, slowly enlarging it to contain more energy. His nuclei began to spin faster, gradually increasing in size as more strands of origin power coiled around them, but he had to remain cautious. The balance between the 5 nuclei must remain perfect, or the delicate harmony would be destroyed. The foundation was still fragile, and the slightest imbalance could undo everything. As he worked, Ling Han felt a sudden jolt. He stopped immediately, a sense of disbelief washing over him. A dark, imposing tower floated within his Dantian, exuding an ancient aura, golden light swirling from it. It was a tower with 9 levels, towering high above, reaching into the heavens and the earth itself. Ling Han recognized the tower immediately. It was the very object that had brought about his death in his previous life, the black tower that had caused his downfall. A chill ran through him. How could this tower be here? Was it following him into this life, determined to strike him down again? Was this its purpose, to seek him out once more, to finish what it had started in his previous life? He could not allow that to happen. This time, he would not fall. Not again. In his past life, after enduring countless trials and dangers, Ling Han finally reached the Black Light Ground Valley, where he uncovered a mysterious black tower. Upon its walls, golden script was engraved, marking the presence of the indestructible Heaven Scroll. This discovery, while a monumental opportunity, also heralded the greatest danger of his previous life. With a mere tremor of the tower, his physical body was shattered into dust. Only his soul remained, passing through the torrent of time to reawaken 10,000 years later. Now, standing before this very tower once more, even Ling Han's formidable mind, honed to the level of a Heaven-tier warrior, was gripped by a momentary fear. In his past life, it had been but a slight tremor that reduced him to ashes. The very fact that this tower was once again within his body was enough to stir his dread. Yet soon Ling Han regained his composure. If the Black Tower had desired his death a second time, it could have done so long ago. Though he had only recently discovered its presence within his Dantian, this tower must have resided there for a long time. Reflecting on this, the pieces began to fall into place. For instance, why had his soul endured for 10,000 years? It could only be due to the Black Tower. It had not merely allowed his rebirth, it had engineered it, using some arcane method to bring him back to life the moment he had begun to comprehend the first layer of the indestructible Heaven Scroll. A mere coincidence? No, this was far too improbable. The Black Tower, still possessing its 9 floors, stood as it always had. The door to the lowest floor remained sealed tightly, while the other floors were locked, with neither windows nor entrances. Even Ling Han's keen sight could not discern the material it was made of. All he could sense was a chilling, ancient aura emanating from it. Moreover, he had never heard of anything other than origin power dwelling within the Dantian. This Black Tower was undoubtedly not of this world. There was a 99% certainty that the tower and the indestructible Heaven Scroll engraved upon its walls hailed from the divine plane. A cultivation technique that required 10,000 years to fully comprehend could not possibly be of the mortal realm. Ling Han attempted to send his consciousness into the Black Tower, but it was utterly futile. Though mental power, being formless, should have been able to pass through the smallest crack, there was not even a pinhole through which his consciousness could enter. He directed his mental energy toward the door, but it was immediately repelled. So this was its nature. He, a mere mortal, could do nothing against it. In his past life, the tower had obliterated him with a mere tremor. Now, occupying his dantian, it exerted an overbearing presence that rendered him helpless. He had no understanding of what kind of existence this Black Tower was. Yet Ling Han was not one to surrender easily. He once again commanded his consciousness to assault the tower. He needed answers. After several attempts, it seemed the tower had grown impatient. It trembled slightly, and for the first time, there was a reaction. A flash of consciousness surged forth from the tower. This was no mere communication. It was a direct transmission of intent. The message was clear. You are too weak now. Only once you break through to the gushing spring tier will you be able to enter the Black Tower. But as the new master, every time you advance to the next tier, the tower will grant you a single blessing, raising your power by 1 tier. Ling Han, now in the early stages of element gathering tier, would gain a boost to the power of the first layer of gushing spring tier, thanks to the Black Tower's blessing. However, this was a one-time benefit per tier, and it could not be accumulated. Once used, it would be wasted. Master? He had become the master of the Black Tower? Yet, for all his newfound authority, Ling Han still could not access the tower. Each time he ascended a tier, he would receive only a single fleeting blessing. The tower was reluctant to grant him more, as if it were bound by an ancient inscrutable rule. Still, this blessing was no small boon. In a moment of peril, it could be the difference between life and death. Though the tower's stinginess rankled, Ling Han understood its value as a trump card. With the power to raise his strength by 1 tier, it could turn the tide of battle at a critical moment. Exhaling deeply, Ling Han opened his eyes, feeling a mix of disappointment and resolve. Liu Yutong, noticing his disheartened expression despite his breakthrough, could not help but feel a pang of sympathy. You broke through to element gathering tier in a single day, and yet you seem discontent. How could anyone else bear such a thing? Let's go home, Ling Han said, snapping his fingers. For the first time, he felt the warmth of parental love. After nearly a month away from home, he found himself longing for the comfort of his family. They set off toward home, and along the way, Ling Han reviewed the second layer of the 5 elements heaven grade skill in his mind. His heightened perception allowed him to grasp every minute detail with ease, fully comprehending this new level of cultivation. The 5 elements heaven grade skill was divided into 9 layers, corresponding to the various cultivation tiers, from body refining to heaven tier. Every advancement required a corresponding shift in the cultivation technique. Element gathering tier, as he now realized, was a different realm altogether. Origin power surged from his dantian, 10 times more potent than it had been at the 9th layer of body refining tier. It flowed endlessly, as though there was no limit to it. In a fraction of the time it took to travel to their destination, they made their way home. Grey Cloud Town soon appeared before them, and as they entered the Ling clan residence, all the servants and guards bowed respectfully to Ling Han. Greetings, young Master Han. It was no secret that Ling Han had defeated the Cheng brothers. His reputation had changed drastically, and no one dared disrespect him anymore. Upon asking around, he learned that his father, Ling Dongxing, was in his study. Ling Han hurried there, eager to learn what had happened to his mother. Upon entering the study, he found his father holding an invitation. You've returned just in time, Ling Dongxing said with a laugh. Tonight, the Cheng clan is hosting a banquet, and you're invited. Ling Han took the invitation and, scanning it, smirked. The Cheng clan can't hold on any longer. Ling Dongxing had already begun his counterattack against the Cheng clan. By cutting off their supply of alchemical medicine, the Cheng clan had been left crippled, their finances in ruins. Ling Han's family had bought up the medicinal ingredients meant for the Cheng clan and sold them at a loss, further weakening their rivals. Now, the Cheng clan, desperate, had extended an olive branch, inviting them to a banquet, no doubt in a last-ditch effort to salvage their situation. "We'll attend the banquet, but stay cautious. I fear the Cheng clan may be planning something," Ling Dongxing warned. He would not go alone, bringing the clan's elite members to serve as protection. Ling Dongxing paused, a frown crossing his face. He felt something was off but could not place it. Then, with a sudden realization, he slapped the table in excitement. "Han Er, you've broken through to Element Gathering Tier!" His excitement was palpable, his fists clenched so tightly that the bones creaked under the pressure. Ling Han nodded, smiling. "I have!" "Good, good," Ling Dongxing said, his joy uncontrollable. He had carried the burden of his wife's disappearance alone for so long, and now, with his son's breakthrough, it seemed as though the dark clouds might finally lift. "Father, I want to know about Mother," Ling Han said, his tone heavy with determination. Ling Dongxing hesitated, but nodded solemnly. "Now that you have reached this stage, you deserve to know the truth. I thought I would carry this secret to my grave, but it has weighed heavily on me for far too long." Ling Han's heart tightened. His father had endured years of sorrow alone, but now he would share the burden. Ling Han swore to himself that whoever was responsible for his mother's disappearance would pay the price.